Okay, we are back. P&B betting, college football episode 12. Mr. Paisley, we got another week in the book. Some exciting games. Obviously, the Penn State Ohio State game, probably the highlight here, as we'll get into that. But here, what are your thoughts of the recent week that we just had?
Yeah, another crazy week. Big game, James. Same thing. Some things just don't change, Case. I think you know that as a Penn State fan, but we'll get into that and some of the marquee matchups last week in a shortened recap. But yeah, just exciting, just taking it week by week. Had a pretty solid week again. Was happy with my performance, and like I was telling you, had two go awry that could have been winners and could have been even more that ended up right on the card with Michigan plus 14.5. We'll get to them later. And then Duke plus 21. I had them at halftime up 4, and I was getting 21. Don't get the cover, lose by 22, of course, to Miami and their explosive offense. So just some wild stuff. I think that's just some in college football that's been going on all year. It's just some of these wild swings and just crazy finishes for betting purposes, maybe not for people in real life that don't have money on this. But, yeah, some wild betting stuff going on once again.
Yeah, similar week that we had last week. Also, I think actually might have been identical. I was 500 and you were just above 500, 9-6-1, 15 wins, 12 losses, 1 tie as a whole. Split the locks again, so we're now 11-9, and our overall doesn't change much there. Still sticking around 51%, which rather be ahead than behind for sure. So with that being said, we could really just jump right into the Ohio State-Penn State game here and get into the Week 10 recap. I'm not surprised at this result. I'm truly not. James Franklin, once again, just can't get the big win. You could point fingers all day here in this game. It was kind of a similar game as last year. Both defenses played pretty well, low-scoring game. I think last year it was 20-12. This year is 20-13. Frank couldn't get the ball in the end zone, twice inside the Ohio State 3-yard line. 0 points on both of those possessions with the interception there. One of them was a turnover, and the other one was a 4th down late in the game. Couldn't convert. Franklin just can't get the big win. It's every opportunity at home. Ohio State wasn't playing great. This was a winnable game. The opportunities were there, and Penn State just failed to get over that hump. And, we talked about at the beginning of the year, like I said, it's a different format. We don't need to beat Ohio State, but it's just unbelievable, Jared. You don't get many opportunities like this. Like, you have a top 5 home game. Everything's, aligned for you. Chance to win, twice inside the 3-yard line. I really just can't get over that. Also, the fast start. You're up 10-0, big pick 6 to start. It's loud. Ohio State couldn't do much. It was just a total colossal. Normal James Franklin. Didn't expect to win. Didn't win. Whatever. Same result, different year. More on the Washington. So that's the way it is.
I like it. Like a big Bill Belichick there, just on to the next week. Not even worrying about the week prior. But, it literally just feels like you're watching like carbon copies of the games exactly how they were last year. Very much similar to last year. Penn State couldn't really move the ball. I think the offense was really the biggest, kind of blame I would maybe put on the Penn State team. Defense tried to do their job and held them to as much as they can there. So, yeah, just couldn't get the offense going. Alar looked okay. He didn't look like banged up or super unhealthy, so you can't really blame it on that. Couldn't really get the run game going. You got the new offensive coordinator we talked about that's been really good for them early on, and just kind of some questionable play calling there. So it wasn't really Franklin's fault there. Had to go for it on 4th down near the goal line there at the end of the game. Just didn't really have a great play dialed up there. So, yeah, just couldn't really get the run game going. And then on the flip side, they couldn't really stop the run, which I think was the biggest surprise in the game, with Ohio State having the lack of running last game against Nebraska the week prior, and then coming in now to Penn State, and they were running the ball, getting some good push up front. So just didn't see that coming. Wow. Penn State's defense did hunker down when they needed to in the red zone. Got that nice pick 6, like you said. Yeah, they had a lot going for them, up 10-0 at home. Record crowd too, broke the attendance record, which was pretty cool. But
yeah,
just
record crowd.
Fudging the numbers a little bit there to get it over. But it was just crazy to see again, just falling flat. And then that last drive, I think, was something I would keep in mind going forward with Penn State with stopping the run. I mean, that was 11 straight plays, all run, kind of similar to that Michigan game last year. Not to bring up all these bad memories, Case, but it just felt like they got a little out physical at home. They have great pass rushers, but do they want to stop the run? That's going to be an issue, I think, going forward here with some of these games. I mean, Washington doesn't really run the ball great, but take a look at Minnesota the week prior. I mean, they still got a lot of games left to play for Penn State, but I think they could have some matchups or some matchup issues going into the playoffs. I think a lot of these teams have holes, like we talked about. There's not a lot of great teams, so just got to kind of figure out where you're weak at and just really work on that the rest of the year. But yeah, just another disappointing one for Penn State. Really could have made a stake here, and like props to Ohio State, but I don't think they looked like overly dominant. I mean, they still have some holes and they still have some stuff going on their side of the ball. So got the win, but I don't feel that great or that confident that they're people are now putting them as number one, number two, and like I don't believe in that. I think they're kind of still the same. My opinion really didn't change too much on them. It was kind of just more a change on the Penn State side.
Yeah, I think Ohio State is a beatable team. I think the only thing that they have going for them is it seems pretty wide open this year. Like we were talking, there's not a lot of dominant teams. I mean, we saw Texas, lose. We saw, Oregon just edge it out with Ohio State. And then a lot of teams are kind of beating each other here towards the top and the SEC now. And we'll get to Texas A&M. They went down. The only last unbeaten SEC in conference unbeaten. They lost now. So Ohio State still has the season in front of us. They didn't look dominant. Once again, Penn State really just handed them the game. They couldn't score. And look, I mean, I was not surprised at this Franklin result by any means, but the one, I don't want to say pro of Franklin here talking point, but it is also a reality that Ohio State did have the better athletes on the field. And I think most of the time that does happen. You can't find many coaches with good records against top 5 teams so I'm not like, whatever, like I'm going to move on here, but it's just the same. We didn't have the talent. They had opportunities. They couldn't get it done inside the goal line. And you're right. They couldn't stop the run. Did flashback to what it was like against Michigan last year. We'll see. We'll see what happens in Minnesota. I don't think that's a guarantee. You're right. I think that could, why can't Minnesota be in that game? And I think, Penn State's probably a little disappointed at what happened. So yeah, for sure. Penn State does have to figure that out. I think they could still go 11-1 here. Like I said, nothing shocking here about this past result. Disappointing, but not shocking. But yeah, we'll see how that turns out. Definitely Minnesota, look out for that because on the road also, and they beat USC. They have a couple of decent wins. So that'll be good to watch. But certainly if the season ended right now, yeah, Penn State's still in a decent spot for playoff wise.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too with like the top 5 records. Like you're 100% right. Not a lot of coaches have great records. Like it's Saban, Dabo in the past, maybe with the big, games that they used to play. But like, yeah, they'd always, I remember the Vanderbilt Alabama game. They're like Vanderbilt's 0-45 against the number 1 team. It's like, yeah, you're not going to win all the time against the number 1 team if you're Vanderbilt. So it's like some of those stats are a little crazy, So yeah, I agree with you there.
All right, so we'll move on here, and this is going to be a little bit of a quicker episode, by the way, this week. Jared and I just have a few things going on, and honestly, not a ton of games, great games that we'll need to recap, but we have a few more here. South Carolina getting the big win over Texas A&M this past weekend. As I just noted, A&M was unbeaten in SEC play. This is one, Jared, I got to give it to you. You were on the right side of this one. I went A&M at the end. I don't know. I just felt like they started to play good football at the right amount of time. And I really didn't have a ton of faith in South Carolina. I knew it was on the road. They had, the home crowd there and it would be rocking. And it definitely was. South Carolina went out to a quick start. A&M kind of clawed back here in the second quarter and I think tied it up. It was kind of close. And then once we got to the second half, South Carolina just kind of throttled it and was able to get a pretty big win. I think it was by like 3 possessions. And I don't think a lot of people saw that happening. So big win for South Carolina. Disappointing for A&M, but 12-team playoff. A&M is still in the thick of things here, even with their loss to Notre Dame, as you know, week 1. But yeah, what are your thoughts here on this one for kind of both teams on really A&M and how the rest, their season could shape up here?
Yeah, finally got one right. We took 11 weeks when we went head to head, but I gotta take my flowers when I get them. But It was more just situational spot. I don't really love South Carolina going forward. I love their defense, but the offense still had some blunders, it looked like, in that game for some patches there. But yeah, I think that's just something to take forward with some of these matchups. And maybe just going into college football next year too, is some of these situational spots are kind of, I feel like, hitting more than usual. I don't know if it is a lot of travel. Now the 12-team playoff, it's not as much intensity or like week to week. Like it's just weird, but I just feel like some of these huge like letdown spots, or they get a big win, and these schedules are really beefing up because these conferences are getting a lot bigger with a lot better teams. So just something to keep in mind. But yeah, Texas A&M, like it's hard to play like 4 or 5 of these heavy games in a row at night, spending a lot of energy, and they're just college athletes too. So it's not like a professional NFL where you don't really get swayed week by week. So yeah, I just feel like Texas A&M came out a little flat, showed some nice play. Like you said, it was 20-0, and they battled back to 20-20. And then, yeah, second half just kind of ran out of gas. But I think, yeah, I was more impressed with South Carolina. Like we kind of knew A&M was going to be a little slow, a little sluggish. I was more surprised with the defense kind of giving up all these points to South Carolina, putting up 44 on them. So I think it was just a bad matchup, bad spot. I'm still not selling all my Texas A&M stock that I have. I still think they're a really solid team. Should really give Texas a run at the end of the year. But I think they just fell victim to a tough spot and a tough SEC that not a lot of great teams, but there's a lot of, like the South Carolina might be the 8th, 9th best team in the SEC, but they could still be really good week in and week out. So I think this was more just a scheduling thing in general.
Yeah, for sure. It was a tough spot for them to go there, and coming off of the way that their season been going, definitely like a trap type of feel to it, and indirectly kind of Paisley hurts Notre Dame a little bit, just based off of not much. I think we both know Notre Dame controls here the rest of their season based off of the new playoff format, so it's not really a cause for alarm, but it's something to keep in mind because how the way the rankings shape up, and now the rankings actually do matter. We don't really, we don't have time to talk about the whole ranking, but the first college football playoff rankings came out this past week. So, I'm sure everybody has looked at those. And so now that they're out, that is more dominant over the AP. That'll actually control the seeding. So I don't think Notre Dame really moved. I think in the AP, maybe they dropped 1 spot. I'm not really sure, but not much movement. But yeah, definitely, you probably want to see A&M winning a lot of games here and stay in at least the top 25 for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely help with Northern Illinois not looking as great. If Texas A&M could have finished like top 5, not that Notre Dame could afford another loss, but maybe they would have had an argument there if a lot of other chaos happened. So yeah, just some, but there's just been so much chaos. And I think that's another thing, people like freak out over these first rankings. And it's like, we still have a lot of football left to play, like 4 weeks left. A lot of teams have 4 games left, plus the conference championship. So it doesn't feel like there's a ton left in the season, but there will be a ton of movement. We still have a ton of big games this weekend. So, yeah, I think, like you said, Notre Dame controls its own destiny. I think if they win out, they'll be in. If they lose one of these games and trip up, I think they're gone regardless. But, yeah, you're kind of rooting for some of these other teams that you might have played early on the year, to kind of just help out your resume in general. Because there's going to be so much discussion for having teams like 12 through 25, like we talked about at the time.
No, it's going to be very exciting going into Thanksgiving here and final weeks and all these teams fighting for a playoff bid. Another team now that their path just got a little bit narrower, Clemson Tigers failing to get the win against Louisville this past weekend. Kind of a shocker game. I didn't see this one coming. I actually like Clemson, and it seems like right when I start talking up a team, they just do this and just lay an absolute egg on me. Disappointing for them. Louisville just kind of controlled this whole game. They were 10 or 11 point underdogs in this game. They win outright, 2 possessions. Clemson now all of a sudden sitting with an ACC loss with that early loss to Georgia. So they pretty much need to win out here the rest of the way, I think. I mean, maybe if they somehow trip up and then still win the ACC, but I don't see that happening the way that, those standings are shaping up with Miami still unbeaten, and we'll get to the other teams like SMU and Pittsburgh. But disappointing for Clemson. It seemed like it was working for Dabo all season since that Georgia game. I think I was just talking about them last week, and now here all of a sudden we're sitting a week later in a stunner. They're getting upset by Louisville.
Yeah, this one was an absolute stunner. I feel like they didn't get a lot of publicity. Like nobody was watching this game or just didn't really have a reaction as they normally do. But this one, I kind of want to put another point of emphasis is the scheduling. I feel like we talked about the scheduling with the spots, but this is more strength of schedule. I feel like Clemson, if you look back at their schedule and how they look so good and they were putting up a ton of points, which is why I like the over, maybe why you like Clemson. You look back at some of the teams they beat, and it's like, that team's not that good. That team's not that good. So, like, I feel like the strength of competition, Louisville had some really big tests early on with playing Notre Dame. They played Miami a couple weeks ago. So, like, they've had some nice tests. So, just, again, something to keep in mind going forward is some of these teams still haven't really played a lot of great teams, throughout their schedule. Maybe Penn State going into last week too, like Ohio State had that test at Oregon, just something to keep in mind. But I think that's I have a nice pick I really like based on a nice scheduling, strength of schedule like that. It's crazy. It could be 9-10 weeks into the season and maybe you still haven't played anybody that's in the top 50, not even the top 25. So just something to keep in mind with some of these schools. And I think Clemson just for the length of or lack of strength of schedule kind of got tripped up by a Louisville team. That record didn't look good, but they got battle tested and looked pretty good in Clemson there.
Yeah, no, definitely a stunner. I didn't see it coming. And Louisville was ready. And Clemson just did not look like they did the last few weeks. Obviously, still season in front of them. They could still get to the ACC with this one loss, the championship game. I don't know how all the scheduling works out, but pretty sure I saw if they win out, they'll still be there. I'm not sure how that'll work with SMU and Pittsburgh, but we'll see. Still a ton of weeks left. But definitely got a little bit thinner for Clemson. All right. Might as well move on here. Next segment. I know that was a quick recap. Not a ton of action there we missed, but definitely Penn State, Ohio State, the highlight there of this past weekend. And that will lead us right into winners and losers. I'm just going to state the obvious. I think Penn State lost the week just based off of all the opportunity was there for Franklin. You have all the media there, game day, Fox, everybody fails to get it done. I could say James Franklin's the loser. I'm just going to say Penn State here as a whole. You have a top 5 team at home and couldn't get it done. I'm going to throw also a half loser to Fox in general for slotting this as the Fox Big Noon. I could go on all day about it. I think it's ruining college football. Fox putting their prime slate at noon. This game should have been at 8 o'clock. Would have still lost 100% about that, but it would have been a lot more fun. I'd probably be drunker. So disappointing. James Franklin, Penn State. I had to do it at least one of these weeks. So hopefully they don't lose to Minnesota because I'd probably do it after that. But definitely loser of the week, in my opinion, Mr. Paisley is the Penn State Nittany Lions. Yeah, no, I
agree with you. And I think, like you said, now Penn State's path gets a little thinner. Their schedule does get a little easier now going forward. They really don't have a big, like 3-point spread or anything close like that the rest of the year. But right, like now, just because now you have that one loss, you can't just coast. I would know that after week 2 with being a Notre Dame fan. You think, it's all easy. We're just got to go undefeated from here on out, and some chaos could happen here. So just be careful there. And I agree with the Big Noon. Hate that. It's just crazy to have the biggest game at noon. It's annoying, but that's the new age of TV rights and everything, and everyone's got to have their primetime game. But for my loser, we'll say the Big Ten. Actually, I touched on this game a little bit, but I'm going to go head coach the Oregon Ducks, Dan Lanning. I have a bunch to pick with him about holding a Michigan ticket plus 14.5. I'm just about to go out to dinner. I have the multi-view on. They ran the ball on first down. Michigan does not call timeout. They had one timeout left, about a minute 05 left or a minute 20. So Oregon could easily knee the ball out. They just got a first down. They're on like the 5-yard line. They run the ball on first down. I was waiting if Michigan was going to call timeout or not. So they call timeout, then maybe they're going to try and run it again. They don't. I'm like, okay, let's leave. Let's go out to dinner. And I just had a feeling, I'm like, there's no way they probably did something stupid and punched it in. I probably lost that ticket. So look back, and he did. He ran the ball again and then got stuffed, ran it again on third down, got it in with his starters in. And he's up 14 at this point. This could have been an absolute disaster if A, an injury, if B, if they fumbled it. But no one's going to talk about that because they scored and they looked all right and they had 21. But I just thought that was a pretty bonehead move. You saw Mario Cristobal doing that at the end of the Georgia Tech game last year. It was only a 1-score game at that point. I know you're up 2, so it's a different story. But for covering purposes and betting purposes, I was very pissed off about that. But that's what I had a pretty good week. Could have been even better if I didn't have some crazy stuff like that. And Oregon's been doing that late in games. They've just been like taking knees and getting backdoored by some of these other teams. So I thought they were going to do that again. Made no sense why they did it there. So just a little bone to pick with Oregon, but it was very scary taking a Michigan ticket there, and I thought we had some there.
I was going to say, Jared, I thought you were done with Michigan a couple weeks ago. So
yeah, I was, and then now I don't even blame them this week, but it's like I got to listen to myself, I guess. Case I cut them off.
That one's annoying with landing. I guess it's the new era of too, like style points, the way they, these
Yeah.
rankings set up. Now it's literally you just have a committee deciding, who gets to go what ranking. So it's just kind of a different aspect of the game. Like, but yeah, that's a bad beat for sure. That's a disappointing one.
Like just take the knees. Like seriously, can't stress it enough. If you have, if I have an Oregon, I would have been so happy. But it depends what side
Right,
of the
right.
country.
My winner, I'm just going to go to the ACC, SMU as a whole. You get a big win against Pittsburgh right there in the ACC. A little bit of a mix with Clemson losing. Now all of a sudden you're really, talking about SMU's paths. They only have the early loss to BYU. So I haven't talked a ton about them, but, just as a whole, SMU this year has been before the season. I know some people picked them to be their dark horse. Then they struggled against BYU. They lost that game. They kind of got written off. But since then, they've been quietly taking care of business, winning games, looking pretty good doing it. This was their, I don't want to say a real test. I mean, Pittsburgh, I think, was also untested. So, they might have been a little bit of a fraud alert. But regardless, SMU takes care of business. They're in the ACC now, major conference. So everything's ahead with them in front of them. And, they're in a good spot. So just credit to them all around, SMU.
Yeah, I mean, with Clemson going down, Miami's trying to lose games, I think, but they just can't. So I completely agree with you that SMU quietly is just taking care of business, looking good while doing. That was a blowout. I mean, that was 21 nothing in the first quarter. I think like that game was over easily. I think we both had SMU -7. So
Yeah.
good job by both of us there. But yeah, like giving SMU their props there. My winner. I'm going to go with UCLA, actually. A little shout out for getting a nice win at Nebraska. I mean, Nebraska is nothing crazy like they are every year, not meeting expectations. But I'm just giving a little credit to this UCLA team, not just for this week, but for a lot of weeks. I mean, they've had a tough schedule. If you want to talk about teams that played a lot of tough teams like Oregon, Penn State, now on the road against Nebraska. So they've had some tough ones, and they've hung in there and covered a lot of these games, which – I think from a betting perspective means something. And then, I think this team was picked to have 1-2 wins and be a joke of a program. I thought that was going to be the case too, but they're actually turning it around, looking like okay. It's not looking amazing. Yeah. It's not looking like they're, having 6-7 wins. They're only 3-5. I wrote down. So, but I think that's more than I think all of us would have thought going into the year. So, I give UCLA credit from a betting perspective. I feel like their ATS record's pretty solid. So. Just a team to keep in mind now. Do they have enough gas? Because they are traveling so much and they're playing really hard. Or they beat Rutgers too a couple weeks ago on the road in New Jersey. So yeah, I feel like you just got to give UCLA some credit here for being projected to be a really bad team. But I think they're showing some fight, got to give the head coach a little credit too after that weird introductory press conference. So got to give the whole program some credit there.
Yeah, no, I like it. They're holding their own there, UCLA. Not easy. It's a good comment about having enough gas traveling from coast to coast, to like literally across from Los Angeles to Piscataway, New Jersey, to play Rutgers. And certainly pretty impressed with them. They held their own against Penn State for a while too. Was able to move the ball and like you said, tested, tough schedule, getting a few wins. And I like what they're doing. I think that's a good dark horse there, a winner of the week, just as a whole there, UCLA. That leads us right into Week 11 preview here. We'll just start there. Friday night, Iowa going to UCLA. Iowa, a 6-point favorite. This would be a huge win for them, UCLA, if they could get it. They do have Iowa coming to town. Not easy on a Friday night. Totals at 45 in that one. What do you see? You think UCLA has a shot here in this one?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think this with UCLA, Washington. Like some of these big spreads, but these teams are traveling so much. It's just like, where are they at mentally? You don't really have anything to go off of because no teams have had to travel this much in a season. So it's going to be tough. But yeah, I think the point spread's a little bit too high. But Iowa's playing some really good football. I mean, they're not getting a ton of buzz either. But I mean, they're scoring. They scored 40 again, Case. I think we talked about this early on in the year. Like, I mean, will there ever be a chance Iowa will be over 40? I mean, they put it up a couple times. They scored 42 on Wisconsin to our chagrin. We had Wisconsin in the money line parlay, but yeah, I mean, Iowa's offense is clicking even with the backup quarterback, and it might be an upgrade, which I didn't see that coming. But I mean, Iowa is a different team, so this will be a nice test to prove it. UCLA's defense has been playing pretty good, so can Iowa still continue that offensive momentum? I would probably lean UCLA here, but again, like it's just it's tough with these kids. I like them coming back home. I always, it's tough when you're traveling that much. You're on the road in a different environment. So I kind of like that they're back home here. Should be a little sleepy for Iowa. I mean, it's not going to be packed probably Friday night in UCLA. So yeah, maybe I like them to hang around. If it gets up to 7 or so, it might be a full unit play. But I'd probably lean UCLA in this one.
Yeah, it's tough to get people at that stadium too, unless it's even if it's a marquee matchup there in the Rose Bowl there. But yeah, I think UCLA has a shot to win this game. I think I'd probably lean with them with the points. I was actually on them last week too to cover their UCLA, so I do like him again here. I don't know if I love it. Saturday I'll see. Maybe I'll have it on. But yeah, that'll be a fun one at least, and it'll be interesting dynamic too. Once again, the new conference realignment with Iowa traveling to UCLA, Los Angeles here in the middle of November. Will be cool to see. All right, number 20, Colorado going to Texas Tech. Colorado all of a sudden finds themselves in a interesting situation with the Big 12. Really chance to possibly get to the Big 12 championship game the way it's shaping up with other teams losing, and we'll get to Iowa State, but they're all of a sudden with a loss as well. So Colorado laying 3.5. And we'll get to our other picks later. I'm going to lean here Texas Tech. I just think it's all of a sudden once the roller coaster, you get high on Colorado, it comes crashing down. So I'm hoping that happens here this week, but we'll see. Total set at 63. Texas Tech's kind of been a weird team all season. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this one with Colorado going there on Saturday.
Yeah, I think you got to start with Colorado. Coming off a bye, they were a little banged up going into the bye week. But like you said, this opened wide up for them. They need some chaos to happen in the Big 12, and there was with Kansas State and Iowa State going down. BYU still looking for that first loss, but they're looking to just get into the title game. So they could definitely use a couple more losses from some of those top teams. And if they take care of business, should be in the Big 12 title game, which is crazy to think. I mean, that would just be an insane turnaround from year one. I think it's going to start with the offense. I mean, their offense is legit, like we talked about in weeks past. I really like Shedeur Sanders. I think he might be the best quarterback in college football going into next year. Maybe not. It's more because the other quarterbacks just aren't really playing that great. We had a conversation with somebody the other day, and I just think Shedeur is playing at a very high level. Just kind of gets that negative publicity from his dad and what they're doing there at that program, and deservedly so. But I'm kind of with you in this game. I kind of like Texas Tech at home here. After that big upset win against Iowa State, they come back home, getting over a field goal, and I kind of like the over. I think there'll be a lot of points in this game. I think both defenses are a little bit better or a little bit worse than what they're putting out there. I think Colorado's looking a lot better, but I don't think their defense is that tough if they step up against a really good offense. I think both these teams have really good offenses, but the defenses are lacking a little bit. Just something to keep in mind while I'm kind of on Texas Tech here is their running back. His name's escaped me right now, but really good running back. There's a ton of great running backs, and Genty's taken most of the publicity, but he's been quietly really good. He's been there 4 years at Texas Tech, which you don't see a lot of players at 4 years at a college. And I think Colorado still struggles a little bit to stop the run. I think he's a great running back to insert here, just run him right up the gut and lean on him a little bit. So I think it's a tough matchup for Colorado, but I think it's a tough matchup for Texas Tech's defense going against Colorado. But yeah, I just think the 3.5, the public really loves Colorado, so they always juice this number up a little bit and maybe get their point spreads inflated. So I kind of think this should be right at like a pick 'em. So I kind of think there's some value on Texas Tech at home, which has kind of been a good home place for them to win if you look at some metrics and some stuff for them. But yeah, I like what Texas Tech is doing on both sides of the ball. I think they're going to ride this momentum from the last big upset and keep this one close. And then I also like the over in this one, over 63.
Yeah, that's a lot of points. I agree. I like the over there, 63. And yeah, I think that's not an easy place to go and play Texas Tech for sure. I'll never forget that. I don't even know if you remember, but when they played Texas, this is a long time ago with Michael Crabtree, when they got the big win over #1 Texas. I have that memory engraved in my brain there with Texas Tech and the huge win and like rushing the field like 3 times because there was like a second left. They got everybody on the field and they had to clear it. It was great. But yeah, that'll be a fun one. That one's at 4:00 there Saturday. Leads us to, I guess, Washington, Penn State on Saturday. Whiteout game there, which whatever. I mean, it should have been Ohio State, as we know, but it's Washington, and it's streaming only, which is ridiculous. Another aspect of it. It's not even being broadcasted, which is wild. 13.5 points is the line, total at 46. I think probably Penn State will come out here and cover. I don't really have a ton of faith in Washington, and that's going to be a tough environment to go to. And I think Penn State, from last week, I feel like this is a typical bounce back game for them, not to get too confident. But I don't know if I'll officially have it on my picks there Saturday. But I would lean Penn State here with this spread here, sitting at 13.5.
Yeah, I feel like some teams are just kind of good in their lane. No pun intended with Lane Kiffin that we'll get to later on, or Brian Kelly. Like they're kind of doing the narrative that we think they are, which is kind of not great in big games, but better in these spots where they should win. And I think that's where Penn State stands at the moment with the results from last week. Right. So I think you're right. I think they usually do good in these spots. I just think the number is a little high. I might have to disagree with you here and take Washington, but I don't love it, again, because of the scheduling spot with all the travel. Just coming off of a big win against USC, which I was on Washington last week, so I was very happy with that. But now you win against a big rival, now you got to travel like that. It's just a tough turnaround. If they would have lost, maybe they would have had some, some built-up anger and stuff. So it's kind of, I didn't want them to win that game for this game's sake, but obviously because of last week. So I just think it's a tough spot, but I still might just take a little nibble at, like, if it gets up to 14 or some, just hoping Washington keep it close. I think Penn State will win this game ultimately. I think Washington's really good secondary, but they can't really stop the run. And this is where I'm going to be intrigued to see if Penn State will commit to the run game here, because their pass game has been a little lackluster. The receivers on the outside are definitely just not the talent you would like to see, like at a top-tier program, which I think it's making LR struggle a little bit with getting separation on the outside. So I think if they want to run the ball, Penn State should be able to. Will Washington adjust? So just something to keep an eye on matchup-wise going into the game. And then, I think you're right. It's a tough environment to go into at night. Washington's offense has been really good moving the ball, but their red zone is like 120th I saw in the country. So, and they finish drives. If you're not going to finish drives, you can't upset this team on the road. So, but if they're starting to finish drives and punching in for 7, could get a little dicey. But I think I'm just going to take Washington plus 14 if it gets up to that, but don't really absolutely love it.
Right. Yeah. Interesting note on the red zone offense of Washington. I didn't realize that. But we'll see. I mean, big opportunity for them, really, Washington. Keep forgetting they were in the national championship last year. But, if they could go in and keep this game close, I don't know. I would be surprised. I just feel like Penn State should be able to pull away from this Washington team, also under the circumstances we just laid out. But, we'll see. Big opportunity for them, though, regardless, for Washington. More, go on the road. Tough environment, and coming off of a big win, if they were able to really keep this thing close or somehow pull off this upset would be huge. So, don't want to overlook them. I'm like I said, for those reasons, I think I lean Penn State here, but it will be interesting. As with you, I don't really love either play here.
Yeah, and I just really want to see if Penn State, they're running the ball really good this year with their 2 backs, the offensive line, but I feel like the offensive coordinator, you've been at most of the games. Like, I feel like he gets a little trigger happy with the pass. Like, I wish he would commit more to the run game and just keep, run the ball. I know the game states haven't been great. They've been down a lot in these games, but I feel like their run game's really good. Are they going to stick to it? Are they going to lean to it? Are they going to get into that really good Washington secondary? Will be the matchup to watch.
Seems like it's a patience thing. Like, their offense, the running game's been good, but they haven't been great at getting the chunk play. Like, they've struggled with this last year. They're like getting the big run play. They chip away 2-3 yards maybe at a time. I don't know. Singleton I feel like since he's been a freshman, I don't know what happened, but this happens sometimes in college. Like, these guys put on muscle, they put on weight. He's a little bit slower. Like, the dynamics change. I feel like he hasn't been just tougher to break the big run. I don't know if that's part of it on why they kind of go to Aller after, they run the ball a little bit, but I agree. I wish they'd commit to it a lot more, especially getting Singleton more involved just in the offense as a whole, more screens, whatever, RPOs. But it'll be interesting to watch. I think, like I said, they should be able to pull away from this, but nothing would surprise me with James Franklin. So.
Now just one more quick thought. There's a quick stat that I heard from last week. I think the receiving core only had 2 catches last week. So just something to keep in mind that the receivers got to get going and got to step it up there on the outside for Penn State.
Well, the one, too. I mean, it should have been a touchdown, and Wallace just decided to let the defender catch the ball.
It was a crazy pick. Yeah, that was crazy.
I don't understand how it's possible, but whatever. Regardless, doesn't even matter. On to the new week. All right, a couple more here. Alabama, LSU. Big game there for SEC implications. Really a kind of a playoff eliminator here. Both teams really need this. Multiple losses. Alabama feels like more so just because of, Kalen DeBoer and having the pressure that, Alabama fans are putting on him. This one could have been probably like a top 5 matchup in the beginning of the season, and the way things, if you were asking preseason polls, so both teams definitely have kind of underperformed. Maybe not LSU as much. They were kind of a question mark a little bit coming into the season. But yeah, tough place in Death Valley at night there, LSU. What are your thoughts here? Spread is 2.5, Alabama.
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see Alabama at 11, honestly, but there's been so many losses in that like 10 to 20 range with the teams ranked. So I guess you got to put some people up there, but I think they are regarding that Georgia win very highly. But honestly, you think of that case, like what if Georgia comes back and wins that game, and where this program would be at right now? So just some wild stuff with Alabama. I totally agree. I think there's more pressure on Alabama. I think their expectations were a lot higher. The fan base is getting a little restless with those high expectations. But yeah, just think of the game in general. I'm kind of leaning LSU again. I know I got burnt 2 weekends ago, taking Brian Kelly in a big game. That was on the road. We got him at home here, catching a couple points. I'll take the 2.5. I just like their offensive matchup against Alabama's defense. I think they could hit some nice explosives. I think Alabama is really leaky in the secondary, and I think that's where LSU is really good, passing the ball downfield. Nussmeier got a little banged up in the Texas A&M game, should be fully healthy. Both teams coming off a bye, so both teams having the same advantage. But I just really like the matchup there with LSU through the air. LSU can't really run it that great, so I think they're going to be throwing it a lot, which plays right into their favor. And that's also why I kind of like the over because of the other side of the matchup here. I think Alabama could have some success. LSU struggled a lot last year defending Jalen Milroe. He went nuclear in that game. And they struggled pretty mightily against Texas A&M's backup quarterback that came in the game, Reed. That was a really good runner. So I think they were a little caught off guard. I think they now know could prepare for 2 weeks. That's why I kind of lean LSU now, that they could kind of scout that a little bit differently and keep this one close. And I think they can honestly pull out the outright upset here at home. Tough place to play. Alabama's offense just been a little clunky too. Their defense is not that great as we know, but the offense came out on fire, and then that Georgia game looked good. And then ever since that Georgia second half and on every game, if you look at their scores, like just nothing impressive. They got shut down by Georgia in the second half against Tennessee's defense, against South Carolina's defense. And, so I just I don't really trust Jalen Milroe a lot this year. I feel like he's regressing a little bit than where he was last year. And I think LSU's defense has been playing a little bit better. So I'm kind of just taking a little piece at LSU. I'm very scared every time I take them in a big primetime game like this, but I'm getting a little flashbacks of Brian Kelly's first year where they got that upset win at home and the place went nuts. I think they kind of got Alabama's number, not last year, but I think this year I think they got their number here and going to get an outright win.
I think we're on the same page here. I just feel like at home, Alabama is kind of in a spot where the season's not going the way they planned it to, or they think they could be better. I think just on the road here, I don't know how their players, they haven't been in this position in a while. I like LSU too. I think they can win this game. I mean, I think it's practically a pick-em game. And, I think Alabama has better talent and they should win this game. But for the way the season's going and the points that you laid out, I agree. I like LSU with the points. Maybe, I'd buy the extra half a point or whatever and get it over 3.5. I'd really like it. Because I think this is going to be a close game the whole way, total at 58 there. But yeah, I definitely also lean LSU.
Yeah, it's also important. Check those Sunday line Monday mornings when they come out, because I did grab this one at plus 3.5, now down to 2.5, and it really hasn't moved at all. It's just kind of sticking at that 2.5. But I agree. I'd buy a little bit and buy it up to that 3 just for a little more insurance there on LSU.
All right, this last one here, SEC, also Georgia, Ole Miss. Ole Miss kind of also expectations through the roof, beginning of the season. Things don't play out the way they would hope, to get a couple upsets here early in the year. And then Georgia, weird team. They've looked like the best team all year. If you take 2 quarters out of the Alabama game, they'd be the unanimous number 1, I think. Only laying 2.5 here. I think we might be a little bit on the different page here as well, but I lean Georgia here. I don't know. I just don't think Ole Miss has been in any position to win this game. I would be totally shocked here, even at home with Kiffin and how things have been going there. Only laying 2.5 there, Georgia and Ole Miss.
Yeah, I do have Ole Miss in this game as well, but not as confident, not even close to some of my other picks there in LSU. But I really kind of liked it early on in the year, got closer, and I'm like, it's a little bit shorter, but yeah, I dug a little more into this and really wasn't feeling confident. But I don't feel that confident about Georgia either. I mean, their offense has been very stagnant. I was kind of surprised with that. Carson Beck turning it over a bunch. I watched a good chunk of that Florida game and just couldn't get anything going against the Florida defense. So I actually like the under as a big play in this one. I kind of like it 54.5. It's creeping down a little bit from 55, 56 where it opened. I think I've been taking a lot of Ole Miss unders, and I feel like they've been hitting because their defense is really good this year. Offense is kind of getting there. It's kind of picking up some steam. Had a nice game last week against Arkansas, but I think Arkansas has fallen off the table a little bit. And I think Georgia's kind of going back to their old ways where the defense is now starting to gain form, dominating a little bit, and their offense can't really get out of their own way and putting the defense in some bad spots. So I think Georgia could have lost that game against Florida if their backup Flagway from Florida didn't go down in that game, had to go to the third string. And then they kind of kept it close, had a late score to tie it up, but then Georgia had a nice drive to get it back over 7 points. So just a crazy game there against Florida last week. But Florida's playing some good balls. Keep your eye on them.
Right.
But, yeah, I just kind of don't like both teams' offense in this game, and I kind of like their defenses. So one of my more favorite plays this weekend, honestly, I kind of like this under a lot. I trust both these defenses. I think their offenses are going to be a little stagnant. I think Lane Kiffin gets a little conservative in these big games. So I'm really interested to see if this Georgia defense can stay aggressive like they were against Texas, or are they going to kind of go back to their ways like Alabama and just kind of rush for and not really be the, take the game to the other team. So, yeah, really interested to see how Carson Beck plays against this very good Ole Miss defense. He was kind of supposed to be the number 1 pick going into the year, and he's not helping his case at all, kind of losing a couple $1 million maybe with his draft position. So, yeah, really to see this game, but a really nice play on the under here, and would sadly lean a little bit with Lane Kiffin, but I'm holding my nose on that one.
Yeah, no, he has not led up to the expectations, Carson Beck, on how he's been playing lately. I mean, he looks like your typical Georgia quarterback down with going back to like Aaron Murray and some of those guys that he just has not played well. He's kind of been a strange player. I know the Heisman hype was early in the season, and I thought he was a little bit better, but no, he hasn't looked good. So that's a good point. I don't trust Ole Miss at all. That's kind of my reasoning for where Georgia. It's not really more of a I love Georgia as much as I just don't like Ole Miss. So that's where I'm leaning there. And then I guess we just have some picks here, the PB bets of the week and parlay. I know that was kind of a quicker rundown here of the recap and preview, but Mr. Paisley, I'll let you kick things off here on some of your Thursday picks here for the week.
Yeah, I'm going to do something. If you've been listening to the pod, I've been hyping up the service academies a lot, and actually was fading them a little bit last weekend with Navy. I took Rice in that game. They got the outright win. I'm going to fade Navy again. I hate to do it, but it's more situational spots. I still love these teams. I think they're really good. I think it's more schedule and situational now coming up these weeks. So I'm going to go with UCF at home getting 3. I just think the wrong team's favored in this game. I think UCF's playing some good ball. Lost their starting quarterback, and didn't lose him. I think he was injured, and then I think they just turned into the backup. Played FAU on Thursday night last week. Watched that game. Offense looked good, put up over 40. And I just think Navy and Army haven't really played a lot of great teams. If you look back on their schedules, it's a lot of bottom feeders. And then when Navy stepped up in class against Notre Dame, we saw the clear difference. I mean, they had a lot of turnovers, which didn't help, but there was a clear difference there. And I think that number was a little short. So I think UCF's pretty solid. I like their head coach. I think he's young and upcoming. So I think UCF can do enough here to slow Navy down. And I think Navy's defense is just not good, is what we touched on when they played Notre Dame. So I think if you have a good offense, you could really exploit it. And then the last point is their quarterback has an injury, which is similar to Navy and Army, but has a thumb injury he was dealing with last weekend. Couldn't really grip the ball really great. Navy and Army guys are tough. They're going to battle it out. Probably other guys would sit out if they have these injuries. So I just think that's tough with your main quarterback running a lot. They really rely on their quarterback in these triple option offenses. So a little banged up on the road now, going down to Florida. I think South Florida is a better team here, so I'll take them plus the 3 here.
Yeah, and we saw what Notre Dame did to Navy a couple weeks ago. Just total blowout. Okay, I like it. South Florida with 3. One of mine, I'm just going that we just talked about, so I won't give my reasons, but I'm going to go Georgia minus 2.5. It's a small line. I have no faith in Ole Miss. I think Georgia's going to win this game. They should win it by at least a touchdown, I think. But yeah, low scoring, as you pointed out, could see that. Great defenses, not great offenses. But yeah, give me Georgia winning 2.5.
Yeah, should be a great matchup. And for my second pick, I'm going to go against Army now here and take North Texas plus 5.5. Very much same reasons, literally the exact same reasons. Their quarterback's banged up an ankle injury, which I think is hurting the quarterback more. Triple option. He was going to give it a go last week, didn't against Air Force, sat out late. I think he's going to try and give it a go here. But maybe wait on this one. This might bump up a little bit once they announce him in. You can maybe get a 7 on North Texas. And we talked about North Texas a couple podcasts ago. Great offense. They could light it up. I think this is going to be the best offense Army has faced all year, and I think they're going to get a little shell shock. I think North Texas is going to put up a bunch of points. I kind of like the over, but now with the injury at quarterback from Army, I kind of took it off the board. So I'm just going to go with North Texas here, plus the points. I think they could put up a lot of points here, and maybe flirt with a little outright upset. I hate to do it going against the service academies, but
I was going to say, you were so high. You were so high on these teams a couple weeks ago, Jared. I don't know what happened. Yes. Now you're making me think everything.
Situation. It's week by week. Betting's week by week. I hate to say it, but I still love the country. Love our great armed forces. But week by week, just tough spots and injuries.
Yeah, good note there. We do support the military here on the PB podcast. I'm going Indiana here, laying 14.5 against Michigan. Interesting game. Didn't really talk much about it. But Indiana has just been playing incredible. I mean, they've played well the last few weeks. I think they're well deserving of their ranking at this point. They've proved it week in, week out, what they did to Michigan State and Nebraska and some of these other teams. I know it's a lot of points. I saw a stat that like in all the meetings of Indiana, Michigan, we've never seen a spread like this. But different times. I mean, it's like you said, it's week to week, it's year to year. Indiana looks good. I think they're home. It's like a primetime CBS slate. Typically we used to see like Alabama, LSU here go at it at 3:30 on CBS. Instead, we have Michigan going to a top 10 Indiana team. So pretty crazy there. But I think I really like them. I think they're going to throttle Michigan. I think they could cover the spread. It's only 14. I think Michigan hasn't been that great. I think Indiana has a lot to prove. I think their coach likes to score. I mean, they're fun team to watch. I know their quarterback's a little banged up, so might want to look at that. But for those reasons, give me Indiana. I'm going to keep at this point betting on them until they give me a reason not to. I like them. I like them pretty big here in this one.
I like it. Yeah, I mean, they've been a covering machine. I think they covered every game, and even last week they were down 10-0. Michigan State got out to a little lead at home, ended up winning 42 or 48-10. They literally just went unanswered. Like, this team is ridiculous. Kind of, if you watch March Madness, I feel like they're kind of like a UConn team. Maybe not a back-to-back championship level team, but in terms of betting wise, where it's like these lines are so high, and it's like, I don't think these sportsbooks could put them high enough. This team is just defying all odds, just tearing through the competition. So I think that's a great pick there. I think waking up and just taking Indiana every week so far has been really profitable, so can't go wrong there. I'm going to go with another heavy favorite out of the Pac-12 or Pac-2, if you want to call it, Washington State, minus 20.5 at home, playing against Utah State, which we picked on Utah State a couple weekends ago, talking about how they're a good over team because their defense might be the worst in the country. I think Washington State, another quiet team that's playing really good football. If you want to dig into some of these lower level teams that don't really get the national hype, their offense is on fire. If you look at some of their home scoring, they've been having some nice home cooking the last couple games, scoring like 30, 40 plus. I think their offense is legit. I think their defense could do enough to slow down Utah State. I don't think they're that great. So I think this number is a little short here. I think this should be a little bit higher. So if you get under the 3 touchdowns, I really like Washington State here to put the pedal down and score a ton of points. Would also lean to the over too. I think it's at 68 or 69 I saw in the market. So very high, but I'm more confident in the Washington State Cougars to get a huge win here and romp the score.
It's been an interesting team to watch, Washington State, because what are they sitting there with, like one loss only, or do they have two losses now?
One loss to Boise State, I think.
Okay, so, like, do they qualify as a group of five?
I don't think they technically don't. So yeah, they would have to get in as a
at-large. That's wow. Yeah, that'd be tough.
Championship. Yeah, they're in a tough spot.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I looked. By the way, quick side note, but they play Oregon State twice next year. I don't know if you saw those schedules come out.
That's funny. That's awesome.
But I like that. Washington State's been interesting to watch. They got the big win early in the season over Washington, that rivalry game. So,
yep.
But no, that'll be a good one to watch. We'll see how their season plays out. Definitely been playing well, for sure. And my last one here, I'm just going Iowa State, -3. They're coming off of their first loss to Texas Tech, which we talked about before. I think they're going to bounce back here. They played Kansas. Kansas has been a disappointment. It is on the road, but I think they're better. We just need a field goal here. I think it's a good bounce back spot for them. Give me Iowa State laying 3.
Yeah, I saw Kansas 2-6, just crazy, and it's only a 3-point spread, so something to keep in mind. Yeah, I don't mind that with Iowa State. And then, my last, I'm going to go West Virginia, Casey's favorite team in the country. Going to go back to them here. Getting 5, I just think it's a little bit of a numbers play. I think this is a little inflated because of a quarterback change. They're going away from Garrett Green and going to a backup, which I actually don't like. I think Green's been terrible, as we outlined with some of their games, and he has not been living up to the hype. So I think this backup is honestly better than him and fits the system a little bit better, but now you're getting a couple more points because of that. They're playing at Cincinnati. Cincinnati, I like them as a team, but I just think the matchup, they don't really stop the run well. I think West Virginia could run the ball here with their new quarterback. Kind of makes a lot better decisions, not really putting their defense in tough spots. And West Virginia's secondary is not that great, but Cincinnati's more of a run team as well, so I don't think they could exploit them too much here. I think this game should be closer to a field goal or even less, honestly. So I think you're getting a little bit of value here with the Mountaineers +5.
I can't put myself up to ever betting on West Virginia here the rest of the season, so I can't agree with that. But they did cover last week. The first time I didn't take them.
They looked good.
They did.
Yep, they did.
They did look good last week. But yeah, I took them in the last few covering, and of course they got blown out. They lost the Kansas State game. They lost to somebody else, and then the first week I don't take them. They finally seem to want to play. So I don't know what's going on with them, but I'm glad that at least we get still, you're on them. We have some representation for them, but can't get on them for last week here or another week. All right, might as well just get here into the parlay here to wrap things up. You're just listening. We do this every week. 2 underdogs. We only hit 1 this year, so we are now in the negative units, but still. Chance to win some money here. Well, Jared will give us the odds in a second. My underdog here to win, Texas Tech. I think they're going to beat Colorado. They're getting some points. I don't even need them. I think they're going to upset them. They're at home. As I said, Colorado's kind of riding a high. I think, we could get a prime upset here. So give me the Red Raiders to get the big upset here over Colorado.
I like it. And honestly, the quick note, last 2 parlays have went 1-1. Obviously, you got to get both to win the parlay, but we've been close. I'm going to go with San Jose State playing against Oregon State, fading the other Pac-2 team in the Pac-2. I'm going to go with San Jose State here, coming off a bye. I think they're another quietly good team in the Mountain West, kind of having some better than their expectations were at the beginning of the year. I just think Oregon State's not that good. I'm really high on Washington State, kind of selling Oregon State a little bit. This game is in Oregon State, but I just think San Jose State's playing some good ball. They have a really good receiver that not a lot of people are talking about. That is really good. He was a converted quarterback I was listening to this week, so I really like San Jose State to keep this one close, but I think they could win this game outright at a short money line at +124. So if you parlay both of those together at DraftKings, you'll get it up to +437.
Ooh, okay.
But I got a good feeling in case we've been chipping close. I think this one's going to break through here.
I think so too, and I like this one more than the most weeks, and it's particularly because we have Colorado losing in it too, and I think that's just a likely scenario because this would be a great prime example when all the public money gets on Colorado now with them ranked. So, but yeah, we'll look out for that San Jose State game as well, +124. So good odds. Would you say it was +437?
437. Yeah,
perfect. That's great. Okay, well, pretty good to wrap under an hour today, so pretty good on the time. I know it was quicker, so we appreciate that. And then we'll have our full slate right here on our Twitter page on Saturday morning. Could check it out. Check out the picks. We're above 500. Try to get back in the winning columns on the locks too. I think that would be a nice thing to do here. But yeah, looking good, and we will be back here next Thursday.